Good evening, everybody, and welcome again for another episode of Disney Dialogues. It is my honor tonight to be sitting with my amazing broadcast partner. Hello, Jen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're doing another episode here, and this time we continue to expand our horizons over here on Dialogues as we have an incredible animator coming in tonight, and I can't wait to sit and talk with him. And I know from our preparation on this, his involvement on the Disney front has got you really excited.
Sure does, because who doesn't love those movies of the 90s? Those animated features that were just blockbuster hits.
Mm-hmm.
You got The Little Mermaid, you've got Aladdin, you've got Beauty and the Beast. I mean, those were favorites, still
Right.
are.
And he goes
So
back
this is
into
very exciting.
And he goes back into iconic parts of many of our childhoods when you talk some stuff he's done and like Tom and Jerry and things in the past that we're going to go into a little bit later on tonight. I'm excited. Rick's backstage and he'll be joining us here in just a minute. I want to remind everybody in our chat that if you have a question for our guest tonight, highlight it at Pete McDevitt Show. We will try to get to those as many as we can. If you're watching on the replay, we get a lot of replay watches. We're so grateful for those of you that are watching on replay. You can always leave a comment on the video itself. And if you do that, we will get to our guest and try to get back to you with an answer or have them shoot an answer on the vid. One way or another, your comments are important and your questions are important. We try to do what we can. So with that being said, chat, we acknowledge you all, but as we do on Dialogues all the time, we say one big hello and welcome. We want to get right to our guests because the time is so precious. Jen, you do a great job with these opening introductions all the time. I always say, hey, if something's really working well, you don't mess with it. So Jen, would you be so kind to do our opening tonight?
Sure, I would love to.
Awesome.
Let's get started. Our guest tonight is an American animator and sequence director who has worked for various studios, including Walt Disney Animation Studios, Rich Animation Studios, and DreamWorks.
Wow.
Rick has been animating for over 30 years and is best known for bringing life to Disney sidekicks Scuttle,
Yes.
LeFou,
Yes.
and Abu.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
In the beloved Academy Award-winning films The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin.
Love it.
Rick's early career began in 1978 after attending the California Institute of the Arts, where he was hired at Filmation Studios. There, he contributed to numerous projects, including Fat Albert, Mighty Mouse, Tom and Jerry, Zorro, and Flash Gordon, to name a few. Like, that's childhood Saturday morning cartoons right there.
Mm-hmm. You can't imagine it without it.
That's right. Our guest's remarkable career in animation has included contributions to beloved creations such as The Rescuers Down Under, The Swan Princess, The Prince of Egypt, The Iron Giant, and The Road to El Dorado. Rick's work in animated shorts and commercials has featured iconic names and projects, including Snoopy, Timon and Pumbaa, How to Train Your Dragon, and The Princess and the Frog. I mean, I just feel like I'm name dropping here. Like, there's so many incredible things that he's been involved with. I can't wait to hear more. Our guest's influence on the musical genre through his creativity has led him to collaborate with iconic names such as Brian Wilson and, get this, Paula Abdul, among others. His directing career as an animator at DreamWorks included bringing the beloved Moses the Camel to life in The Prince of Egypt back in 1998.
Yep.
He followed that achievement in 2001 by contributing storyboards to Shrek, which went on to win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. That's awesome. Rick Farmiloe's name is synonymous with animated success, and now we are thrilled that his name will also be associated with Disney Dialogues. So please join me in welcoming to the show our new friend, Rick Farmiloe.
Rick, welcome in, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I need to correct one thing: is I did not go to Cal Arts.
You did.
In all my biographies, it says I did go to Cal Arts, but I didn't. So not that I wouldn't have liked to go to Cal Arts, but I have a story about why I didn't go to Cal Arts. But anyway, I didn't go to Cal Arts. I started at Filmation. That was my first job was Filmation. So
we need to fire all those people that put out there in many of your biographies and everything.
I don't know where it's. I mean, I would have liked to have gone there, but I was working instead, so that's why I didn't go there. But anyway,
Well, we're so glad that you joined us tonight because you can set the record straight on anything else that those biographers might have put to us, and learn a little bit more about your life and what you've done. You've touched millions of lives through your work, and we are just honored to do it tonight. So I think the simple thing to start would be just a simple general introduction from you to our guests, as we have many audience members who may be meeting you for the first time tonight, and I'd love to just get off on the right foot.
okay. You want me to
Sure,
talk about
sure.
how I started, or when I was a
Just
little
a
kid? And
general introduction about you, because
yeah,
we've got
well,
we've got so many
I've
great
been,
questions that we'll get into.
yeah, I've been animating since 79, 19. It's probably over 40 years, but it is over 30 years. If it's over 40 years, it's also over 30 years, and that sounds better. So we'll stick with that. But since I was a little kid, I wanted to be an animator. I didn't even know what it was called or anything, but I just wanted to make stuff move. Draw
Okay.
cartoons and make them move on the screen. And I've had a really long career, and I'm still animating. And I feel really blessed to have gotten the talent to do it, but then also the situations where I could do it, because things have changed a lot in the animation business. But I feel really grateful that I'm still able to animate and, for a living,
Yeah, absolutely. I love
as
this
well as
little
teaching.
teaching as well. I love this little Mighty Mouse that you apparently did it somewhere, that was posted by one of your fans, that I guess they said you did at one point. Is that, do you recognize that one?
I have done so many ugly little drawings over the years, like just on a piece of paper. Somebody say, "Can you do a drawing?" And I do it, and I give it to him, and then I forget about it. Then I go on the internet and go, "Oh my God, why would I let that stuff be?" Because some of it is so bad because I just did it really fast. Some things I'm proud of. This Mighty Mouse isn't one of my best things, but I did it pretty quickly and just handed it to whoever it was. So I have a
Okay.
lot of those kinds of drawings around.
Okay.
Anyway,
Jen?
I think they're great drawings. I'm just I think they're great. Let's go back though to your childhood when you first dreamed of becoming a cartoonist. How has that artistic journey unfolded for you? Has the reality of where you are today met or even exceeded the expectations that the young version of you once imagined?
it absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely has exceeded what I thought. I was I think about 9 years old, maybe younger when I first. Maybe I think I was younger actually when I saw Pinocchio at the drive-in, and I had seen cartoons on TV and I loved them, but that was Pinocchio was something really different, and it was a feature film, emotional, and I just really loved it. And I just remember thinking, I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. You don't think of it as a job. You just think about, just want to do that. And I remember getting home, and the next day I made my own Pinocchio book, little, with cartoons based on what I remembered from the film. I have it somewhere. I wish I wish I could find it and show you. But that was the beginning, and then everything I did kind of led up to that. Everything I only wanted to do that. I only wanted to draw cartoons. I only wanted to do animation. And Charles Schultz, who lived in Santa Rosa, which is where I'm from, he was doing it, and so he was a huge hero of mine. And he was a good example of, well, you can do this. You can make a living out of drawing cartoons. And so he was a huge influence on me.
Love that. Love that. That's
That's
absolutely,
awesome.
yeah, absolutely amazing. Well, on our
There
show,
he
Rick,
is.
on our show, we love to take the time to reflect on influences. So that's the perfect transition, that have shaped our guest creative journey. For you, one of those key influences was Bob Clampett. Could you share with us some of the impact that Bob had on, oh boy, on the path? I love it. And how his work inspired your own creativity.
Well, he was one of my early, he was a Warner Brothers director, but and of course I loved his cartoons, but he was the one who started my career. Would you like me to go into that story really quickly? It
Sure,
won't take that
please.
long.
Please.
Uh, of course, I loved his cartoons, and I was planning on going to Cal Arts. I had gone to art school up in Oakland, California, for a year, and then my teacher said, you need to go to CalArts. The stuff you like to do, the way you animate, you should be doing character animation at CalArts. So my plan was to move to LA and attend CalArts. So I sent in my application, but I was a little too late. So they said, we can't let you come in the fall, but please apply again in the spring. We'll have more openings then. So that was my plan. But Bob Clampett was appearing at a comic convention in San Francisco, and I wanted to show him all my artwork. I did a film in art school, cartoon, and I wanted to show him my work to see what he thought of it. So I met him at the comic convention, and I waited till I was the last person in line because I wanted to talk. He did his show. He showed some cartoons. He brought out a puppet, and then I waited till I was the very last person. I said, I want to be an animator, and I'm moving to Los Angeles in a couple of months. Can I come and see you? And he said, sure, that'd be great. So that happened. I moved to LA. I started working in a record store for a job, And then I went to see him, and he really liked my stuff. He thought my work was really good, and he liked the cartoon that I did. And he invited me to a couple of parties with meeting a bunch of these legendary animators like Gurm Natwick and Rudy Eising and Hugh Harmon, and these people that from the early 30s, and I was just awestruck, and he could not have been nicer. He and Sodi, his wife, were absolutely wonderful people. Their hearts were so big, and they were so giving, and his kids, they welcomed me into their family, and it was like incredible. They didn't have to do that, but they have such big hearts. They were so loving. And anyway, so what happened a few months later, Bob wrote me a letter saying, hey, there's going to be a class at a studio called Filmation. And it's an animation class, and they're going to give you animation assignments. And then those who do the best work are going to be hired to work on, it was the Mighty Mouse show with Heckle and Jekyll. And so I called the guy up, and here's the number. And he says, let me know if anything comes of this. I remember that very last line, let me know if anything comes of this. Well, my career came of this, So I went to Filmation and my teacher was Milt Gray, who I am still very good friends with. He was teaching the animation class, and I think there were maybe 10 or 12 of us in the class, and they hired about 4 or 5, and I was one of the ones they hired. Wow. So I started working on the Mighty Mouse show. I was doing a cartoon called Quackula, which was part of the show, and it was a vampire duck, and all of us new guys, that's what we animated on, and I learned a lot from other people that had been there a longer time than me. But it was a great introduction to animation. And during that time, my application, CalArts said, hey, don't forget to send your application in. And I said, I'm already working. I don't want to quit a job animating to go to school to learn to animate. So right. I decided just to stay in Filmation and learn as much as I could from other animators. Of course, my goal was to go to Disney eventually. But anyway, so Bob Clampett was a big part of my life. Even after when the job started, we would go over to his house a lot. He'd show cartoons. I spent so much time with him, and he was such a beautiful guy and such a wonderful, wonderful guy, and supportive of me. And I just, I will never, ever, ever forget how kind he was to me. And he didn't have to be, but I learned something from him. It's like when I get older and there's younger animators coming up, I want to be like him. I want to help these people. I'm going to be always available, give advice, look at drawings, whatever. And I do that. And I never turn anybody down. People send me stuff, emails, or they'll see me in person. They want to show me their reel, on their phone and stuff. And I always have time to give them some feedback and encourage them. And but that comes from him. That's how he was. And I figured, you know what, this is the best way to honor him is continue that, continue that way of being an animator and passing on knowledge to younger people.
I love that. That's absolutely amazing. I love to hear that he set a precedence like that. Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I want to kind of build on this, referencing inspirations. Your own journey included the incredible opportunity to work with several of the legendary 9 Old Men, which is amazing. The
Yep.
revered creative
Yep.
team that supported Walt Disney directly. Could you share with us a few of those interactions and some of the memories from that special time in your career?
Yeah, that was amazing. I obviously
Mhm.
got to, I submitted a portfolio. I got hired at Disney in 1980, January of 1982.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting to get me. I can hire you the first time. They want you to reapply 2 or 3 times to see how bad you want it, that kind of thing. So I applied the first time and figured, okay, I'm just gonna send my portfolio in, and they'll look at it and make correct. They'll make have comments and then give it back to me. And then Ed Hansen, who was running the animation department at the time, called me up and said, "Hey, we saw the review board saw your portfolio," and I'm sort of thinking ahead. Okay, now he wants me to pick the portfolio up at the guard gate. What day am I going to do that? I'm thinking ahead. He goes, "And we'd like to hire you." And I was like, "What? Are you serious?" You know. Anyway, he said, "When can you?" We I called him. "When can you start?" And I said, "I'll be there in 10 minutes." But
10
I
minutes.
started in January, and it was a, I just I've always been a wise guy. So I started at the studio in January of 1982, and I remember the very first day I was there. I was walking down. I mean, you can't imagine how this felt. It was like you're in a palace. It was an animation studio, but to actually be on the Disney lot and know where Walt's office was and certain things, it was incredible. And the first day, I was walking down the long corridor of the end building where the cells on the wall. And here comes this guy on the other end. There's two doors at each end of the hallway, and the door opens, and here comes this guy all dressed in white, and it was Willie Reitherman, one of the Nine
Oh,
Old Men. He was wearing
why
wearing
not?
he always wore Hawaiian stuff and tiki stuff. He had all white on, white shoes, white pants, white tiki shirt, and I just kind of my eyes must have been like this, and he just kind of came walking by me, and I just said, "Hi, Willie," and he goes, "How you doing?" And he kind of does this little wink and sort of keeps walking. So that was my first introduction to those guys. But when I started, many of them were still around, and I feel so fortunate to be have been there at that time. Eric Larson was actually working there as a mentor to us, to
Really?
the younger people, and
That's amazing that they were
specifically to help. Yeah, it was amazing. He was in charge of the training program, which I didn't get into because I had already started on the film on the Black
uh
Cauldron. So the training program was actually a little bit before I started. Where a lot of speaking in Cal Arts, a lot of the Cal Arts graduates were there. Tim Burton, John Musker, John Lasseter, Ron
oh my
Clements,
gosh.
Randy Cartwright. I could go on, and all these guys that were started there just a little, maybe about a year before I did, maybe 2 years. I don't remember, but Frank and Ollie were still there. They were doing their Bambi book, so they were always walking down I was in D wing, which is where they used to have their room. They had their rooms at the end of the hallway, and so that was D wing, and I was right at their first door, and you walk in the hallway. Milt Call had his room was across from where mine was, but by that time Milt had retired, so he wasn't there. He was
Right.
out in the Bay Area. He never
So say I was
never
thought that
came
that
back.
was right at the end of his time. But
Yeah, he,
for most of our listeners to hear Burton's name and Lasseter's name is in, hey,
mhm.
these were just people a little bit before me for what they've done and the
Yeah,
career. And I think it's also important with our guests to realize, with what we're talking with tonight with Rick, he came in at a time when the nine old men who believed in Walt's vision and what they did wanted to carry that on in the tradition that they were there, a part of that, to be the legacy people that helped transcend you to move on to. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Well, it was amazing, and like I said, those guys, a lot of them are still around now. Unfortunately, John Lounsbury had passed away, and Les Clark had passed away. And John Lounsbury is my Disney animation hero, and
Okay.
the stuff that he did, I could spend a couple hours just talking about the incredible talent John had. And I used to go down to it was called the morgue at the time,
Yes.
check out scenes. I would check out scenes, and I'd take them back to my room and I'd Xerox them, and I'd have copies I must have 20 of the scenes Xerox, and I would just flip those and study them over. How did he do that? How was he such a great draftsman, but he could do emotional stuff? He did great acting, but he did really funny stuff. And I wanted to do the funny stuff. So I really related to him and his approach to animation. So unfortunately he had passed away, but Mark Davis was around, Thomas was around, Ollie Johnson was around, Ward Kimball was around, and Willie Reitherman was still around. So you had these guys, and Eric Larson, you had these guys that they'd be around, then they'd give lectures. We'd go in and they would lecture us on Disney animation, and whatever film would be on, we'd maybe screen some of it, have feedback. And you talk about an education, I mean, talk about great teachers. These are the guys that created animation as we know it. They took it from the little Nickelodeon, cute little cat doing some silly little, to like an art form. These are the guys that elevated it to an art form where it is now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And to be in a room with these guys and be able just to hang out with them and talk to them, and they were just so giving, again, with the passing on knowledge. They wanted us to be really good. They wanted us to carry on the Disney legacy. And so I have a lot of their lectures on tape and videotape and audio cassette and stuff. I still have all that stuff. And they were so dedicated to passing on that knowledge to us. I remember one specific thing, Eric Larson, in one of his lectures to us, he said, I don't think, he goes, you guys need to realize how important you are to the Disney name. He pointed his finger. He goes, you have no idea what a responsibility this is to carry on Walt's legacy. He said the Disney name means a lot of things to the world. It's important to the world, and you guys have got to keep that legacy going. And it was like, you need to do great films with great characters that people can relate to and carry that legacy forward. And I think we all took that really seriously and took it to heart and really pushed to do the best animation we could do. We were limited. We didn't write the script. We weren't directing, but we, as animators, could elevate, what we were given to make it just as good as it can possibly be.
I love that. Well, and that's a perfect tie into kind of where I wanted to go with the next spot. You talk about being on campus and the nine old men and the other influences around you, and having the
Mhm.
availability to the morgue, which is again, in case anybody missed it, it's not something drastic. It's where all the old cell scenes are that animators could go back and pull out and reflect upon and
Yeah.
take out, which was a very open forum, as we've learned from past guests when they first
It
started
doesn't do
doing it.
it. It doesn't happen anymore. But when I was there, it was a lot more free. I mean, it was, we'd go through we go through the garbage bins and take out reels of film that had been thrown out. I mean, we had the freedom just to do whatever we wanted. It was pretty
Great.
crazy.
So just
And starting with these guys like John Lasseter and Tim Burton and John Musker and Ron Clemens and Randy, and these guys were so, Andreas, I forgot to mention
Andreas.
Andreas. These
Yeah.
guys were so talented and so great, and I felt so lucky to have these guys. They're friends. I mean, yeah, we are artists together in the studio, but we're also friends. We'd hang out, and we had a softball team, and Tim would play softball with us and stuff. And we had parties and sleepovers and all kinds of, go to Santa Barbara for picnics. I mean, we'd hang out. We'd be together. We all liked each other so much, and it was really a great time. It was a great. It was the changing of the guard. It turned out, where Cauldron was kind of the end of something, and then Great Mouse Detective was the beginning of a new thing. And that was our. I look at the Great Mouse Detective as that was our film, the young people.
Young. Yeah.
That's what we can do now. We're going to do our version of an animated film, and the budget was really a lot lower than Black Cauldron, because Cauldron was a financial disaster. So the new guys, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Michael Eisner, those guys came in and said, we're not going to be spending $35 million on an animated film anymore. And they cut our budget in half.
Wow.
So we had to be kind of smart about it. And John Musker and Ron Clemens and Bernie Mattinson were the three. And I'm sorry, Dave Michener was another one. Bernie was the producer. and director, and then you had Ron and John and Dave Michener as the three directors. And we were just all, this is our first time, all of us, the first time to do this. And, it was a smaller crew, and we got to be really close with each other. And we did this, and then, they let us alone. They let us, they
Do
moved
what
us
you
to
want.
Glendale. They moved us off a lot. And they just kind of let us do it because they were concerned with live action films. They brought in those guys because our live action department was a disaster. So they said, you guys go in Glendale in a warehouse and you do your mouse movie. And so they weren't really too much involved in the day-to-day making of the film. We just were able to kind of do what we thought was right. And the film comes out, and it wasn't like a blockbuster, but it did well, and it got
Right.
lots of critical accolades. People thought it was the critics really, really liked it. So that was nice.
I
It
love
was
that.
it was like obviously a new beginning for us.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to move forward a little bit. Let's move in time a little bit to the 80s and 90s for a minute. When you
Okay.
were working at Disney during what may call the studio's great renaissance, what was that experience like for you? And just as importantly, why do you feel that incredible era eventually came to an end?
I have a very I have a very definite reason, or not definite reason, but to me, a clear reason why it stopped. But um, they didn't look at animation as a real money making kind of a deal. And what I heard later was they were going to let us finish Great Mouse Detective, and then that was going to be it. And
Mm.
Roy Disney stepped forward and said, Roy Disney, who was on the board, and Roy, it was Walt's nephew, said, "Look, Disney Animation is the legacy of the studio." He says, "I don't think it's a good idea to end it." He said, that's the legacy. That's what this studio was built on." He says, let me get involved with it and see if we can turn it into something where it can be a profit making endeavor. Let's see if we can do some things differently, make these films a little cheaper, have them come out a little sooner, so you have like every year there's another film instead of every 4 years, which is what it was before.
Oh,
And so he really helped. He saved us, and he made it possible for us to grow from film. So we finished Great Mouse Detective. Oh, that did pretty good. Here's All Company. Okay, they did a little better, and we just kind of built on that. And I don't think we were conscious of, oh, this is a renaissance or anything like that. Nobody talked about. We just wanted to make good films, and so we were just trying to be good animators and learn. So I think Oliver and Company was a step up, and it did financially did pretty well. And then of course Little Mermaid hits, and it was a block. What happened was Howard Ashman. They got Howard Ashman to come in and write music for 3 films, and I think Howard said, "Well, I'll do the music, but I want to do, I'm a Broadway Broadway show writer." He wanted to write the story. Let me write the story, help with the script, and then the songs will move the story along. And I remember one time, the first time I read the script of Little Mermaid, I was like, "This thing's great right now. It works. Everything works. There's ways we can improve things, but it works."
mhm.
And I remember Howard. We came into the theater one time, and Howard says, "Okay, I'm going to tell you guys." So this is where Ariel decides she wants to boom. Okay. And then this is where Ariel makes the deal with Ursula, and he plays that song. And every song moved the story. It wasn't just a song in the middle of the movie for entertainment's sake. It was an important song that moved the story along. And that was the first time it's ever happened in animation, was the songs move the story. It's not about you have 3 or 4 songs, spread out in this. Here's a funny sequence. We'll add a song here. Here's a romantic sequence. No, it told the story.
Right.
And I just can't say enough great, but for us as far as filmmakers and storytellers, and it was amazing. And I was thrilled because I got to do Little Mermaid. I mean, also on Oliver and Company, but in Little Mermaid, I started getting like the funny characters to animate. I got Scuttle to animate, and it was myself and Dave Steffen who set the design for Scuttle.
Yeah, we're
And
gonna chat on that in just actually a couple minutes.
okay,
On
okay,
that.
yeah,
So let me hang. I want to jump in real quick here. We are having a little bit of challenge with your internet coming through. Just to give you a courtesy heads up. It is skipping just a hair.
okay,
But we'll stay and do the best we can with
hmm,
it. I want to talk about Jeffrey Katzenberg for a second. Your association with Jeffrey
okay.
Katzenberg was such an important part of your career, both during the time at Disney and later at DreamWorks. Could you expand on that relationship for a minute and show how the influence shaped your path?
Well, when Jeffrey was he came to Disney, he was going to be in charge of the film division, so live action and animation. What Jeffrey brought to us was he wanted to make great films. He said, I don't want to make good films. I want to make you guys are not going to do good animation. You're animation, and he wasn't really well versed in the animation history or how it worked or whatever. But he had a certain thing about him. He was a really great storyteller and a great editor, and he could tell when something wasn't working. He may not have the solution to it right away, but he says, this doesn't work. This section doesn't work. We're going to have to do something different. It's not funny or it's not emotional or whatever. I don't like the song, whatever it was. He would point out where he felt things were weak. And that was a huge deal. That was a big difference. My relationship with Jeffrey was as, we weren't really friendly or anything like that. But one thing we did establish was he thought I was funny. And so he thought my animation was funny. And so myself, people like Will Finn, Dave Proxima, we would get called into comedy passes for films, our films, animation, mostly animation. But so we'd go in on a day and we watch the movie and he'd go, hey, this isn't funny. We need some humor here. And we'd come up with gags for the film and doing comedy passes. So I got a reputation of doing that kind of thing, doing comedy passes, coming up with gags for the different animated films we were on. And it was really fun because a lot of the stuff that I came up with, we used it. Some of it was
Right.
my scenes, some of it was other people's scenes, but there was a bunch of us that would be called in. And that's where Jeffrey would talk to us and say, look, you guys, there was no messing around with him. There was no fooling around. He wanted to this is serious stuff. He wanted to get it right. And I think we all elevated our expectations for ourselves. It's like, I got to get better. I got to get better. And I think we all felt that we had to elevate our talent and our output to doing something great. And of course, if you got everybody thinking we got to do great, the end result's probably going to be great. So my
Right.
relationship with him at Disney was just basically that. DreamWorks was something much different, and we can get to that when we get to the DreamWorks part. But he really turned us around. He really started, because sometimes we do stuff and, oh, that's a nice looking scene. That's fun. That moves nice. Well, I don't like it. Or it's like it doesn't work because of whatever in the story, what the character's supposed to be, he wasn't. Okay.
Right.
So we would like things that moved around nice. And Jeffrey would be talking about the character and the story and if it's working or not. So it was a different way to look at things.
Jeffrey followed Walt's thing on that a lot about how the story creates and cultivates everything. I do know that from reading about Jeffrey 100%. So
Yep. Yep. For
Well, I want
sure.
to take a moment to highlight the three very special films and the memorable characters you helped bring to life. Could you share with us your experience working on Aladdin and creating the incredible character of Abu, your work on The Little
Okay.
Mermaid and the wonderfully cunning Scuttle, and finally your contributions to Beauty and the Beast with Gaston's unforgettable sidekick LeFou?
Hmm. Well, loved all three. I'm going to show you a quick picture.
okay,
I don't know if you can see this, but it's me.
animating.
It's a publicity picture. Oh, yeah, and you see the Buddy Hackett pictures. The Buddy Hackett truck. He did the voice of Scuttle, and that's just me animating him saying, "It's a dinglehopper." A publicity photo. I don't think this is in any newspaper in the country, but they thought it'd be cool if I had a publicity picture, so that's what they used.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
and then quickly, here's another one of Dave Steffen, myself, and Buddy Hackett.
Nice. God,
Whoa.
God rest his soul.
doing when he
What a
was doing
great
the voice.
comedian. What a great
Uh, he
comedian.
he was amazing. He was loved him. We got to be friends after the movie was over. Like went on Tonight Show one time when he was on the Tonight Show, and I got to meet Johnny Carson and all that stuff. Anyway, but these characters, I just loved the funny characters, and whenever the way it would work would be, I would get the script to the next movie when it was ready. I'd go through it and I'd see a character I really wanted to do, and I'd go talk to whoever the directors were of that film. I said, "Look, I looked at the script. You know, let's say Little Mermaid's case. I really want to work on Scuttle. He seems really funny. I think I could do some really cool stuff with him." And John Musker would be like, "Yeah, we're sort of thinking you do that anyway. You know, yeah, we're thinking you do some funny stuff." So anyway, that's a good imitation of John if you don't know him. But anyway, so I got Scuttle, and then I just, like I said, for each script, I'd look at it and go, "God, I really like this little fat guy, LeFou, you know." And so I'd go to Kirk and Gary. Can I do? Yeah, we're thinking you do LeFou anyway. So I got a reputation of doing funny animation. I don't think I was, you know, not the greatest animator at the studio, but I think I had a talent for doing funny stuff. And then same with the Boo, the monkey. I'm like, oh, I really want to do that monkey. So I went again.
Mhm.
John and Ron directed that one, and I said I really want to animate the monkey. So I got to animate a Boo. Now Duncan Marjoribanks was the lead on a Boo. He's the one that set the design and set the style, and then we would show him our animation, and he would okay it, and then the director would see it. The directors would see it. So anyway, that's just kind of how things worked. And Rescuers Down Under, same thing. I like that Wilbur character because I just finished doing Scuttle, and here's another bird. Oh, good, I get to do another bird. So I went into Mike Gabriel and Hindel Butoy and said, "Could I please do Wilbur?" And they're like, "Yeah, we were thinking we'd give you Wilbur." Anyway, so that's kind of how it all worked. They kind of knew that I had an affection for the funnier characters, but also a talent for getting the most out of the scenes. Trying to, if I was given a scene, I try to make it funny.
Yeah. It's
Anyway, it was great. I
it's
mean, it was just great.
you can't think of it. I don't think. I mean, Jen and I have kind of talked backstage in preparation for this, Jen. These three characters, while not considered the main character of the film, I can't imagine any of these three films without the humor and the help in storyline, the association and storyline for all of those characters in those three movies. Absolutely,
Well,
I think Rick.
what's good about thank you for saying that. What's good about the sidekicks is they're only in the movie for one reason, to be funny. They don't fall in love with anybody
Yeah,
without them, but they're part of it, and they're a funny part of it. So I was given the freedom to, like, if you can do something funnier with him than what's on the storyboard or whatever, do it. Let's see it. Let's hear about it. So I was given that kind of freedom to, uh, plus. We were all told to plus our stuff. So I was given the freedom to plus my animation and come up with something a little bit different. If you got a second, I'll tell you a quick story about
okay.
Rescuers Down Under. I was doing Wilbur, and there's a scene of him landing at the airport, and he's going to fly off. He's going so fast, he's going to go off the edge of the. He's going to land on a roof, but it's so short, he's going to fly off the end of it. Anyway, they stretch this thing across and trip him, and he tumbles, and he gets up, and he's wearing a bra. Now, how that happened was because with the original boards, he just gets up and just takes and fixes his hat, and that's it. Says, "Don't tell me the runway's too short." And I thought, well, it's not really that funny. Maybe there's a way to make that a funnier scene. So they used a bra to stretch across the runway. And he trips on that. And I said, what if he trips on the bra and tumbles, and he's wearing it? He gets up and he's wearing it. And
That,
at first, the directors were not at all in favor of it. They're like, "No, it's in really bad taste." I said, "Let me just animate it. It won't be in bad taste. He won't even mention it. He'll just sit up. It'll be a visual thing. That's it. He'll just take it off immediately." So they let me animate it, and and they said, "Okay, well, I don't know. We're still not too sure." But they said, "We're having a screening this weekend for moms and kids and families, and they're going to have cards, uh, what do you call those kind of cards? You
The
write
evaluation
your
cards.
criticism
Right.
of the film, or what you liked about it. Yeah. And and Mike said that if we get complaints about the bra scene, we're going to cut it out. I said, okay, that's fair. Of course, if people don't like it, of course you cut it out. So anyway, the weekend comes and goes, and it's Monday morning, and everybody who went to the screening, which is basically the producers and the directors, they were all really happy because it went over really well. The audience really liked it. And so I was talking to Mike about the film, and they said they like this, they like that. And then he says, and then he got really kind of quiet, and he goes, "You got the biggest laugh in the movie, so we're gonna leave it in. We're gonna leave it in."
Oh, that's
So I thought,
awesome.
oh, cool. All right. Anyway,
Well, and you know, the same thing.
it's just funny, but
The same thing happened to me at Magic Kingdom. I tripped and fell, ended up in a bra, and then I was fine. So it works out well.
it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody once. That's one. But anyway, I'm only using that as an example just to sort of let you know that we can, we are trying to do, improve stuff and make things funnier or more dramatic or whatever. It was always on the table. Like, if you have a better idea, let's hear it.
Love it. Love it.
That was really cool.
Jen? Go ahead, Jen. I know we're having a little trouble with the internet there, but go ahead.
Okay. So, as an animator, you've had the opportunity to work under many different directors, each with their own creative vision and style. Could you talk about what it's like to adapt your own artistic approach to fit a director's flow, and how that collaboration shaped your work?
Great question.
That's a really good question. I've never been asked that before. When I was working with, let's say, John and Ron, Little Mermaid and Aladdin, and John is really good at entertainment, gags, funny stuff, entertainment. Ron's strong suit, he's great with story. They're both great with story. They're both funny. I'm just saying their strong suits are. Ron was very focused on the story, making sure everything's working. If we were going too far to the left or too far to the right, he'd pull us back into, no, if that happens, that's going to affect us. We need to stay here. So I tended to work a lot more with John. Were considered the comedy or entertainment sequences. So I would do a lot with him because that's the stuff he liked to do. So it was, John and I were perfect. I totally got what he liked. We had a very, very similar sense of humor. And so it was great because I was able to do a lot of stuff. One time I had, my first film I animated, it was an animator on. I animated Toby in Great Mouse Detective, and he's a little tiny dog, and he's sniffing the streets. They're looking for Olivia, the mouse,
Mm-hmm.
and he's sniffing, and all of a sudden he just, and I decided to be funny, so I just did it, and I took it to John and showed it to him, and he goes, "Oh, you broke the fourth wall." And I'm like, "What's a fourth wall?" And he said, "That's where the character looks at the camera, and you never do that in features." I'm like, "Oh man, okay." So I'm like, rats. He goes, "No, but we'll leave it in though." He says, "It's funny, we'll leave it in." But like I said, but my point is, we had very similar senses of humor. So that's with those guys. Other directors were just different. It was just, Gary and Kirk and Gary were more story. They're from from story. They weren't as focused on the animation. If it did what it was supposed to do, they'd say, "Great, it looks great." Their thing was more about story. And if the animation was working, then you're going on to the next scene. So that's when I was doing LeFou, and I got to do a lot of fun stuff with LeFou. He was fun to draw. And Chris Wall, who was the lead on LeFou, we would come up with all these funny, cool ways he could do certain things. And, we had a whole plan for him. He wasn't as important as we were hoping he would be, but he was funny, and I just would, when they're in the pub and he does that little swirl
around
before he starts, wasn't in storyboarder. Wouldn't that be funny if he does a little pirouette at the beginning before he starts the Gaston song? So there's stuff like that where you just sort of come up with things, and sometimes they work, and the director says, "Yeah, that looks good." So it would just depend on the director, but you'd always try to find some kind of common ground, even if you weren't completely aligned,
Hmm.
And it was the director's wish, whatever the director wanted, you would do. But I never had any trouble really with any. All the directors were, I thought, really great, really supportive, and they seemed to like my stuff for the most part.
That's great.
But that's kind of how it worked. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, earlier in the introduction that Jen did, which was really awesome, we touched on some of your ties to the musical community, working with Robert Schwartzman on Funny Money and
Mm,
Susan Egan on Nina Doesn't
mm,
Care, and of course, Paula Abdul on her iconic live action video of Opposites Attract. What was it
yeah.
like for you to work in that segment of artistic ventures, and how does it differ from your experience in traditional animation?
Well, it was really great. Now with Robert Schwartzman, there's a band called Rooney, which if people don't know Robert Schwartzman, he's uh, he's a grandson or a nephew of Francis Ford Coppola. His mom
Wow.
is Talia Shire. Um,
Wow.
his brother is uh, Jason Schwartzman. So he's a showbiz family. But I love this band Rooney, and so I got to meet them. I forget how or whatever, but he found out I was an animator. So he says, "Hey, would you like to do some animation for a couple of our videos?" I said, "Oh, I'd love to." So I did. I did some animation for a couple of them. I also did Funny Money. There's another one. I can't remember the name of the thing right now, but they're out there. It's like they're the monkeys. They're like with umbrellas out in the desert doing silly things, and it reminded me a lot of like of the monkeys kind of stuff they would do. And so I said, you guys, and they have a little TV that they're watching. And if you guys are watching a cartoon show of yourself, like you guys are a cartoon series, um, like who, like the Beatles, you're like the Beatles cartoon show, like that. And so he goes, "Oh God, that'd be awesome." He says, "But we don't have any money. We're done. We have no money." I said, "Look, I'll do it in one day. Let me animate I'll come up with some designs, run them past you, and I'll animate the thing in one day." And he goes, "You'd really do that like for free?" I said, "Yeah, I would do because I think it would be really fun." So I did. I did this. I wish I could remember the video. It's probably on YouTube. I'm sure it is. I just don't remember the name. But
Okay.
the scene they look, and there they are playing, like kind of like the Beatles cartoon show. So that's how I was. That's how I did my work with Robert. Paula Abdul. It was just something that but back then music videos were huge. This is like 1988. And so she contacted the director, and she wanted animation. And so he contacted a friend of ours, Chris Bailey, who they said, "We want you to direct the animation. We're going to have Paula dance with this cat, and you get a bunch of guys, and you guys animate this stuff." Okay. So this opposites attract, and it turned out really good. We were doing it under the radar because we weren't supposed to be doing freelance while you're at Disney. You're supposed to be only doing stuff for Disney. So we had to be really careful how we, did it. We do it
Right.
after hours, of course. Anyway, it was finished, and the one thing Chris asked, he says, "No, please do not put our names on the credit because we don't want to get in trouble, with our seeing all these Disney names on this crawl or whatever." And the guy said, "No problem." The live action director said, "No problem. It's like we'll make sure that's not on there." So it turned out really nice, and Paula loved it. She was just crazy in love with this video. Anyway, here comes the video directed by so and so, and here comes all our names, nice and slow, and we're like, "Oh my God, we are screwed." But luckily, no one ever said anything. They just sort of let it go, and that kind of thing. So that was the opposites attract. But people still remember that. I mean, that was a long time ago, but it was really fun just having this cat dancing around and that kind of thing. And then the Susan Egan one, I worked for Ken Duncan. Hands all he wanted to do. Mostly, he did some CG stuff too, but he loves hand drawing just like we all do. And so Susan did a voice, and I believe she was Meg in was it
Family Guy?
Hercules? Huh?
Not Family Guy.
No, no, it was a Disney feature. I thought it was Hercules. But anyway,
Hercules?
I think it. Anyway, well, Ken animated that character, okay, of Meg. So the voice, says, I want to do a music video. I want to sing. I was working with Ken, and we all did that video, and she was awesome, and she loved it, and she was very sweet, and it turned out really nice. I got to do a bird because I do lots of birds, I love doing birds, so I got to do this bluebird flying around. But that was the Susan Egan video, and it turned out really nice, and she really loved it, and it was real cute. It was a really cute thing. But I love working with bands, and I did some animation for Brian Wilson for his Lucky Old Son album that he took to London for a live show, and he needed some animation for some different segments, and so I got together with a bunch of some of my friends. I basically directed it, but for whatever that's worth, and then animated on it, and then we put it all together. Raul Garcia was the editor, and anyway, a bunch of Todd Jacobson, Mark London. Anyway, we did this video, and he really loved it, and so they took it all over Europe, and then it came to America, and then they showed it here. So I got to take my kids to one of the shows and say, "Yeah, well, there's my animation up there," So,
That's
but
awesome.
I love music. I'm a huge music fan. So anytime I get to work with a band or an artist, a solo artist, whatever, I do. I do it. So that's kind of a sidelight thing, but it's great.
I love it.
Well, I want to talk for a moment about all of the opportunities that you've had in your career to work on animated shorts and commercials, ranging from projects with Disney Cruise Line and Walt Disney Imagineering to features like The Princess and the Frog, short form work like Timon and Pumbaa's Safety Smart, and ultimately extensive contributions to films such as How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda. As an artist, what was it like for you to expand your creative endeavors into these different areas? And how did these projects also help you establish additional revenue streams as part of your career?
Well, I like the revenue streams thing. Let's see. It sounds like there's a lot of money involved, which there wasn't, but it's just a matter of just working. I mean, obviously, doing feature animation is what I really love to do the best. Okay, you get a character, you can follow him throughout the film. Sometimes he turns into an elephant, So, great. But there's also in between that time, or when Disney stops doing hand-drawn features. Now, what am I going to do? Well, there's shorts. You can do shorts for people. You can do. So there's like commercials and shorts. And when you mentioned How to Train Your Dragon, well, I didn't work on the feature. I worked on a short, How to Train Your Dragon, and about 2 or 3 shorts of Kung Fu Panda, and those were with Ken Duncan because again, Ken wants to do 2D stuff. He wants great animators. He wants to do great work, and he does. He does incredible work. So I got a lot of that stuff was with him, his studio, these short projects, and it helps keep you going, because like I said, Disney got into TV and did storyboards. I was a storyboard director on a show called Camp Lazlo, but I also did boards on a lot of other shows. So you have to kind of be versatile, and you have to kind of go where the work is, And so but it was fun to be able to sort of branch out and do different things. One of the most fun things I did recently was animating in-house, hand-drawn on DuckTales, the new DuckTales. I
Oh, wow.
worked on season 2 and 3, and I was like, it was like a dream. And every single day I went in, I go, man, this is a dream come true. Tablet, I'm on a Cintiq, I'm not doing it on paper, but I can animate I like to use TV Paint as a program. And I asked them, I said, they hired me, and I said, well, can I do it in TV Paint instead of Harmony or what? I said, yeah, we don't care how you do it. We just want the animation. We just want to see your animation. So God, it was just awesome to work on that show. And at first I was kind of like, well, gee, I wonder if they want it to look like TV animation, which is kind of limited, or do they want it full? like Disney features. So I went to Matt Youngberg, who was the executive producer. I said, "Do you want TV kind of looking stuff, or do you feature animation? We want you to do the kind of stuff you did when you're in features. We want great quality animation. And that's why we hired you, so you can do that kind of stuff." So, and they were happy with what I did, and I was happy with what I did, and I was just, it just it went by too fast. It was, like I said, second and third season, but that was amazing, And I'm just drawing ducks every day. I come to work and drawing ducks. So,
That's
what better life can you have, right?
that's
But
very
anyway, that
cool.
was yeah. That's just, again, you do different things, wherever the job is, you fit yourself. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, I would like to chat for a second. Would you be willing to share the story, which I think is a magical interaction you had a few years ago with Robin Williams' daughter? Obviously, Robin Williams, iconic genius mind, and a
yeah,
huge loss to us at way too young. Considering
yeah.
how extraordinary Robin was an artist. And the lasting impact that he's had on Disney across so many areas, I think our audience would love to hear that story about your interaction, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. Even though you sort of gave away the punchline, it doesn't matter. But because I didn't know who it was until she. So my wife and I are at the convention center. I have a booth set up. I'm selling drawings and like, stills I sign and stuff. And Robin had died within a few months of this LA Convention Center Comic Con thing. And I had done a drawing of him, not of him, of Abu. I was at work. I was working at Bento Box at the time, working on I forget the show now. Anyway, he just died. I said, God, it's so sad. We all loved him so much, even though he didn't do my character. He did the genie, but we all loved him. He was so inspirational. His acting and his energy. We just loved seeing the videos of him. They do the voice recording. They bring the videos back. We'd sit there and watch him, and just so inspiring. He passed away, and then I did a drawing of Abu with his hat off, and he's looking down, and then there's the lamp, and it's got the lid open, and it's
Right.
empty. So, and he's got a little tear. At first, I thought, I'm going to do a tear. That's a little cornball, but yeah, he'd be sad. So I did a little tear, and then he just says, "Bye, Genie." Bye, Jenny. Anyway, so I did. I put it on Facebook. I didn't say anything. I just stuck it on Facebook. And the next day, everybody at work had seen it. And I stayed. It was like midnight when I did this. Nobody was at the studio. Next morning, I come in. Everyone's like, "Love your drawing. I love that drawing you did of a boo." I'm like, how did you even see it? It's all over the internet. Everybody had got it and shared it and went all over the place. So it was like kind of like, wow, that's crazy. It was all over the world. People had seen this drawing. Anyway, so I thought, I'm going to do a real nice drawing of that. So I did a more cleaned up, in color, a little fancier, and I made
Mhm.
a print. You could buy a print. So I stuck it up on by my booth. There it is. And this girl walks over me, and she's looking at all my stuff and just kind of standing there. And I wasn't really noticing her because I was doing some drawings for somebody else. And my wife was talking to her. She says, "This is Rick Farmiloe. He's a Disney animator, and he did this character." And the girl goes, "Yeah, I know who he is." And then she said, "We have some of his cells, at our house." And that was interesting. So she comes over, and the person I was talking to had left. And so my wife introduces me to her. She goes, "This is Zoe." I think it was Zoe. I think that's her name.
Mhm.
Good. This is Zoe, and she goes, she's a fan of yours. I said, "Oh, really?" And now I'm like acting all, "Oh, that's cool." And then, I was telling her what I did. Yeah, I did that thing. And she goes, "I like that drawing you did of Abu with the genie thing." And I said, "Oh yeah, well I did that when Robin passed away." And she goes, it was this pause, she just goes, "My dad was the genie." And I was like, "What?" I was like, I didn't believe it. I'm like, "Wait a minute. your dad's Robin? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh. And so I just went to
Wow.
pieces and I said, oh my God. I said, he was amazing. I just went on and on and on. And she had this really sweet pose. She just had her hands folded in front of her. And I wish I could, I have the picture. I could show it to you sometime, but she just, and I said, would you please let me give you that and sign it? She goes, oh, you don't have to do that. I said, no, I do have to do it. So I got the drawing down and I, signed it to her and all that. And then we took a picture together, but it was like the coolest. And she goes, I never walk, because she does voices. She goes, I never walk around conventions. I just do the voice for the panel or whatever it is, and I just go home. She goes, I never walk the floor ever. The first time I've ever done this is just walked
Wow.
around the exhibit hall and then look what I saw. And I'm like, I said, this was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
This meeting was supposed to
Mhm.
happen.
God has a
So it
plan
was,
for things.
yeah, it
Absolutely.
was pretty emotional. And I'm just glad I'm really a picture with her. And she was so cool, about the whole thing. She just was very sweet. And it was really memorable.
I love
Really
that.
memorable.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up tonight and reflect on the incredible journey you've shared with us, what does the future look like for you? Could you give us a
The future?
glimpse into where you see your career heading and highlight any of the upcoming projects or ventures that you're
Well,
excited about?
I, I'm going to just keep doing it. I mean, I keep thinking, I have a lot of friends that are not doing it anymore. They're not animating anymore. They're retired. They moved to the South or wherever, they're like, I'm going to do that. Or they're just teaching, which is fine. I'm teaching 3 animation classes, but what drives me is animating. That's what I love. And I just keep doing it. Yeah, I'm a very good networker. Like I'm very good at contacting people.
Mm-hmm.
And, you I know a lot of people, and sometimes people will just contact me and say, "Hey, you want to work on this?" And I'll say, "Yeah, yeah, for sure." Um, Other times, I'll just reach out to somebody, to somebody I like. There's one filmmaker I really have always loved, and I've been talking to him about his new film. He's getting into production right now, and he really wants me to work on it. And I'm thrilled that I don't have to talk him into it. He's like,
Right.
no, man, I love your work. He says, the way, I would love to have you on. You'd be perfect for this. So there's stuff like that. And I just feel like I just want to keep doing it, and I think I'm still, it isn't like I'm a baseball player where you're like, eventually you can't throw 100 miles an hour anymore. Not that I'm throwing 100 miles an hour, but I'm still able to get the ball over the plate.
Yeah. There you go.
So,
I love that.
Mhm,
so
mhm.
I just sort of want to keep doing it. So opportunities, different places, there always is, and I just try to get the next thing. That's what I try to do. I wanted to do the Jeffrey letter thing, if you
Oh
guys have
yeah. Go
time.
ahead. Yes, you have a letter from Jeffrey Katzenberg if you have
Jeffrey,
time.
and like I said, when I went to DreamWorks, we got close, and he really used me a lot on these gag sessions and just story sessions, and he just liked my opinion about a lot of stuff that was happening in the films, and so he relied on me a lot. It was great. We would talk a lot, and he would call me on the weekends, and what are we gonna do about this sequence? Blah, blah, that kind of thing. And I felt so good that he respected me that much to show me early scripts of things that they're going to put into development just to get my take on it. And so I felt really respected, by him.
Mhm.
And I just absolutely love Jeffrey. There are people who have problems with things, not me. I just think he's a brilliant guy. He was he made us better animators. He pushed for us to be better, not good enough, but the best. And I loved working for him. I absolutely loved working for him. And but I want to read you a letter. When he left Disney, I thought, he left under choice. I think it was kind of a mutual time to wrap this up kind of a deal. So I wrote him a letter and just thanking him for making us better animators and for raising the standards of
Mhm.
our animated films. And just that was it. Just thank you, and good luck with whatever you're doing, and I'd work with you again anytime, whatever. I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was something to that effect that I really appreciated working with him. So a few weeks goes by, and I get this letter from him. Okay, he writes me. He says, "Dear Rick, thank you very much for your wonderful letter. I really appreciate hearing from you. Great 10 years at Disney, and I'm sad to be leaving, on especially from animation." He said, "New adventures are waiting for me. Thank you for your hard work, creativity, and dedication." Um, let's see. I can't read exactly what he says, but anyway, you worked. He goes, "Oh, I say I really love working with you, working together." And it says, "I look forward to our paths crossing again in the very near future. Best, Jeffrey." And I thought, wonder what he means by very near future. Well, then about
DreamWorks.
a month goes by. DreamWorks, who gets called to go work there? Me. He says, "Come over here and see what we're doing." So I was the first animator they hired at DreamWorks from
Oh, I didn't
from
know
the
that.
outside.
That's cool.
It was cool. It was really cool, and he was so great, and he supported the artists, and he just wanted it to be like the greatest studio ever, and wanted everybody to enjoy themselves and work hard and create magic, and that's what he was about. So
I love
I
that.
just have a lot of affection for him, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for making the industry better.
Yeah,
He really did.
he really did push.
It's a great
Absolutely.
Yeah.
story.
I want to remind everybody that you can go over to Rick's website at any point, check in on things that he's got going on, or if you want to contact or reach out to him for some type of project that you're hiring or looking to hire for. Every person out there that we know, including ourselves, are always willing to listen to somebody who wants us to work together and your project that could put some dollars in your
The
pocket. We
best
always look for
You're
that.
exactly the best way to get a hold of me is I don't really use my website so much as a communication thing. You can go to my website, and I still need to update it. It needs to have new storyboards put in, but you can look at my animation reel.
Hmm.
So you just go on rickfarmiloe.com and you can hit animation reel, and you'll see. I don't know how long it is, like maybe 5 minutes.
Five
But
minutes. It's great
I'll just
work.
give you my yeah. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we've been dropping your email in.
Email is
Well, yeah,
rfarmiloe.
we've been dropping it all night into the chat.
Oh, you will.
Yep, it's been
Oh,
dropped.
okay. I didn't know. Then that's I don't
Yeah.
have to talk.
Mhm.
It's been dropped all night in the chat, and
Okay.
also it's available in the description of the video as well, both his website and his email. So anybody that's watching on replay can get to Rick as we can. Rick, we always like to do a I love these all these little animated pictures. Um,
Oh, they're so ugly. They're just hideous, but that's okay if you like them.
I love it.
Mickey's
We've
not.
had such a fun time here with you tonight. I know we had a little bit of internet snafu, but it's been great to hear the stories, the comments in the chat. So many amazing comments. Grandma Grover threw one out there. Neil threw one out there. Victor Naraki threw one out there. So many people. Debbie Bernfeld left his comments in there. So if you get a chance, you can
I
check
wish I
those
could.
out.
s- I wish I could. I wish I could see him. I can't see any of them,
You'd
but
be able to go back on the replay when it'll take
oh,
24
great.
hours, 24 hours to hit the process, but then
Okay.
you could check out
Okay.
all on the chat. But we always
And,
like to
and,
do a
and do, I
go
was going
ahead.
to say, we're going to do questions from them.
Well, I haven't seen too many questions go in there right now. Um,
Okay. Okay.
so, but
Cool.
if anybody does have a question, what I would say is leave it in the on the comment section of the video, and any of them that come in, much like we do with every time, I will get it over to Rick on email, and he can answer it for me, and then I'll put his answer in there so that everybody could, whether you're watching now or on the replay, we want everybody to have that chance to do it. I know we covered a lot, and there was a lot of nice reactions into the chat tonight on all of your
Good.
stories. Debbie Bernfeld says right now, I love these drawings. It brings me such joy, especially Mickey. Thank you, Debbie, for that. You had, let's see, I was just trying to grab a couple. Debbie Thunert said, amazing stories. Grandma Grover said, what an amazing story. I love this. Patriotism USA said, wow, what a great guest. Um, just looking at some of them real quick here as they came in. So a lot of real nice comments as we went through. Neil said, "Thank you for doing this. We are big fans of your work." Just a lot of great
Mm,
comments coming in here tonight. Rick, as we
that's
pull this train into the station, as Walt like to have his train, so do us. We do a final thought of the night for both our
yeah.
guests and for us. I always let our guests go first. Your final thought of the night, anything you want to throw out there or say on any end?
Well, I just feel really blessed, to have been able to do this all these years. I mean, not many people have dreams when they're little kids of what they want to do for their with their life, and that happens that
Mhm.
way. I just feel really lucky. I was really naive about it. I didn't think about problems I was going to have or how difficult this is going to be to do. I just said, I got to do it. I'm just going to do whatever it takes to realize this dream of being an animator. I didn't think too much about anything negative. I wouldn't let that enter me. I just was focused. So I feel really, really fortunate to have spent most of my life animating. What a nutty job,
Yeah,
to do. And I still think I have a lot more I want to do, and I don't get nothing is more joyful than to be working and animating and then getting feedback and reactions. It's almost like you're an entertainer. You do these things and then you get reactions from people who either saw it 30 years ago or just saw it yesterday, and to hear, people come back with how much that meant to them. And I do these conventions and I hear people, you animated my childhood. They're like looking at all these stills. They're like 40 stills of things I've done. And just to get that kind of that sort of appreciation is
that's
really,
awesome.
as fun as it is to animate, it just means so much more when you hear people who appreciate it. Some people, it like made their lives better. I hear those kinds of stories like, you saved my life when I was a little kid and my parents were not ever home and I would just come home and watch these Little Mermaid over and over again on video, whatever. So it made a big positive influence and on people. And that's when I was wanting to do this, I never thought about, are they going to like what I do? I just said, well, I'm just going to do stuff that I think is fun. But then you go into a movie theater and there's all these laughs happening when they're supposed to, when your stuff does what it's supposed to do. 40 years later, it's like they're still laughing at the same things,
Still
so
laughing. That's a good thing.
you're still relevant, or you're an entertainer or whatever it is. But and all these wonderful people I worked with and these great friends I had, and like, we were so, it was such a great life. It was such a great Those were such great years at Disney, in particular, DreamWorks too, when you're working each other to get better.
Hmm.
You're boosting each other up. It's like incredible,
Yeah,
and that just doesn't exist anymore. Unfortunately, the studios are not like that. But I just feel really, really lucky and really fortunate that I was able to, you know, be uh, not be around, but I mean the time that I was doing it.
right.
It just worked out perfectly. So there's probably a few regrets here and there about certain things. Maybe I wish I could have worked on this or that or whatever. But for the most part, I mean, I got pretty lucky working on some of the things I got to work on, and bringing a lot of what's inside me to those characters and thinking about entertainment, and like, you know,
I love it.
um,
I love that
and
point.
having it happen, it's kind of a miracle.
It's a great thing. Real quick, I saw there was David had asked what you got into animation. David, or not David, patriotism. Patriotism. Go back to the beginning. We had a great first opening remarks, and the first two questions were about Rick's start in animation. The answers were fantastic. I'd encourage you to check that out because I knew you came in parts of the way through. Neil says it's incredible to see and hear someone so talented. We have all seen your work and now see the great person you are. That's so perfectly said. With that, I'll go over to Jen for a final thought.
Well, I just want to say that back in the 90s, that trifecta of movies is what made a lot of people just fall in love with Disney and become really big Disney fans. And I am just honored to have the opportunity to hear your stories about that. Um, what a great moment for you to be involved with all three of those movies, making such iconic characters that we all love and will never forget. So it has been my honor to interview you tonight. And thank you so much for sharing all of your stories with all of our listeners.
Well, thank you, Jen. That is really, really, really sweet. I really appreciate that. And again, it's so nice to hear that this stuff that we did had such an impact. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's
Absolutely.
this generations. It's like the girls and the boys that saw the films as girls who are at that age now, and they're watching those things. They're maybe not in the theater, but they're watching them on DVD or Disney Plus or whatever. And it's just really gratifying to have worked really hard, and um, you get something back even after all this time. You still get appreciation. So
I love that.
I anytime I hear stuff like this, and you are so sincere and so wonderful to say that, it really means a lot to me. So thank you.
Well, as always, it's always tough for me to follow my broadcasting partner, but I always love that challenge of doing it because she says things so eloquently and from the heart. Rick, when we first had the chance to find out about you, and I started doing some background of what you did, I can tell you right now, if we were ever to put together an all-star team of all-time Imagineers or all-time animators or all-time authors, and we were to look at the animators part, you, my friend, are on that team of all-time animators. You have brought so much magic to so many people's lives across what you started with at the beginning, from your origins with the Mighty Mouse starting to all the way through everything with Disney, to your DreamWorks time, to your musical time. I have goosebumps as I sit here and finish
Oh,
this interview with you tonight, thinking about the millions of lives that you have touched, and 100% how you've impacted mine. Tonight, yeah, okay, we had a couple, we had some blips with our internet, as we do with it's sometimes that happens, but
that's why
so
the internet's so fun. That's
yeah,
why it's
well,
so fun because you can never
it's
count on
it is what it is, but there were so many great reactions from the people in the chat, and so many people watching tonight that wanted to hear your story. For Jen and I, you have made dialogues better tonight, and it's definitely been our pleasure to sit and have a chat with you tonight and learn little bit about your story. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Like I said, you guys did so much research, and we could have talked for another hour probably, and done. We could, we can go on, and there's so much more we could talk about. But
We could do a
you guys are
segment
really,
two at some point. We could do a segment two at
oh,
some point.
sure, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. But I really appreciate your sincerity, and that what I did impacted you, and you thought it was worth talking about. That means a lot
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you could just hang tight backstage for a minute, Jen and I will do a quick outro, and then we'd love to just chat for a quick second before we say goodbye. Is
Okay.
that okay? Is that all right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome. Okay. Jen,
Thank you.
wow. Wow is all I can say right now.
Yeah, right?
I am blown away with the not only his talent, but his character, his passion, his belief in so many people that were before him, that he allowed them to tutor and nurture him to get to where he wanted, and then he takes the time to acknowledge what he did with Robin Williams' daughter, to give her that. It just says so much for the class of this guy. Oh, muted. I muted you. Oh, did I mute you? Yeah, I did. I did.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. Go ahead. See, I make mistakes. What did he say?
Does
As
this
I
work
was
on
just
wives?
sitting
Does the
here,
mute work on wives?
Hold on, Rick. We can still hear you. So hold on one second. Go
I
ahead,
was just
Jen.
gonna say, does this mute? Does it? Never mind. I was making a joke. You finish.
Okay. go go ahead, Jen.
sorry. It is just amazing to sit here and listen to the stories and the iconic moments of what he has brought to these movies, not just Disney, but all of them. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just such an honor to sit down and hear what they have to say. And I, I don't know what to say. It's just another great Disney dialogue show.
DreamWorks and Disney. It's a Hall of Fame activity there. Well, dialogues continues to roll as we bring in another great guest we're very excited about. Disney fine artist William Silvers will be joining us on our upcoming broadcast here. I am so excited to talk to William. If you don't know about him, he is iconic as far as Disney art goes. He is most well respected. He does multiple times down in Disneyana, down in Disney, the art store down in the Springs. He's also a featured artist for multiple weeks over at the Festival of the Arts. Jen, I can't wait to talk to our next guest. William Silvers coming up.
Yeah, I know we met him briefly when we were down there in June, and that was such a cool moment to see him there with all of his artwork around him. It was iconic. It was amazing, and I'm so excited and looking forward to sitting down and hearing more about his story.
Well, I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm excited for that. Jen, it's been another great show to talk with another amazing person who brings the magic to us in ways that you don't even know and was kind enough to share their stories here tonight.
Mhm.
On behalf of Jen and myself, it's been our honor to sit and talk with you all tonight at home. Leave a comment on the stream on the way out. It's always a good thing. If you have a question for our guests, we'll get to you. And Jen, thank you for tonight. I guess we'll be back in
Thank
a
you.
couple weeks with more dialogue. So, ladies and gentlemen,
All right.
have a good night and have a dialogue with someone in Disney. It's always a good thing. We'll see you next time on the show.